Okay. Well, my name is Fred Van Sickle, and I'm Cornell's Vice President for Alumni Affairs and Development, and I'm really honored to be here with all of you. It's a really special assemblage of people honoring Dave Dunlop, and I see folks from the great class of '59, which is fabulous. And we're so glad to have you here for your 60th. We have some wrestlers. We have Mr. Friedman. He's just been working out, so he's ready to go on the mat, so that's excellent. And folks, many colleagues who worked with Dave here at Cornell, and we're really delighted to have all of you here. And then, of course, just many admirers of Dave. So this is really a special occasion. You know, Dave is a legend 3 times over, and we'll talk about that. I want to give really special thanks to Lauren Schler, who conceived of this and brought us all together. Thank you so much for making this possible. So when I say Dave is a legend 3 times over, the first legend is one I can't really speak to, and that's why Andy Noel is here. His legend is a big red wrestler. So Andy will come up and tell us about that later, but I can't do it justice. But the second 2 legends are Dave as a consummate Cornellian and incredible member of this community who helped make an incredible number of just essential accomplishments possible for this university with his work as a fundraiser and leader over 38 years. So that's the second legend. And then the third legend is, and it stems from Cornell, and as an old fundraiser, I've known for years the legend of Cornell as the sort of the juggernaut of fundraising, and it really sort of begins here in Ithaca, and then when Dave goes off to be a consultant and speaker, it becomes really a national and international legend where Dave has had such an influence over so many people who have never been in Ithaca, never been at Cornell, but are students and disciples, so to speak, of Dave. So that's very, very special. And I want to share my own story that wouldn't have any meaning to Dave, but almost 30 years ago, by some strange fluke, I became the director of principal gifts at Princeton. It's a little college down in New Jersey. And I had the wisdom to realize I didn't know what I was doing. So I needed to find out some people who were the masters. So I spoke with 4 folks, and I made a trek on New Jersey Transit up to 44th Street to the Cornell Club. Little did I know that I'd be spending many more nights at the Cornell Club than I would ever hope to. But I had a wonderful meeting with Dave, who was incredibly gracious with this sort of rank newcomer, this kid with water behind his ears. But Dave was incredibly gracious and shared with me his philosophy and his approach, and it had an incredible influence on my career as a principal gifts person and then throughout the years. So I have just this personal sense of a connection to Dave and his influence on me, which is incredible. And I think for those of us who are fundraisers, he's a legend when we think about moves management. He was the co-creator of moves management, which is this wonderful approach in which we work with people who are members of our community but don't really fully understand what's happening in our environment. They don't feel the sense of engagement. And how do we, through a teamwork with individuals who work throughout the institution, how do we come together and move people from one level to the highest level of commitment and investment in an institution? And the examples here have to be endless at Cornell and endless everywhere. So that's something that at the sort of the global national level, that moves management piece is just essential to, I think, the story about Dave Dunlop as the legend. And I also think as the person who now is the steward of Alumni Affairs and Development at Cornell, it's very clear. I mean, our DNA is so full of Dave Dunlop DNA. And it makes us who we are. I mean, I think when I think about his common sense approach to fundraising, his integrity and his high regard for everyone he works with, and the kind of humility and kindness that Dave has, I think that still really shapes how we do our work and how we interact, which is so important. So I don't know Dave as well as some of our other speakers, so I'm going to turn to them. Our next speaker is Jeff McCarthy, who's my good friend and colleague, who is Dave's successor as the Principal Gifts Leader at Cornell, and he's going to read a letter from Inga Reichenbach, who's one of my predecessors. But if you would come forward, Jeff, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred. I do wish Inga had been able to come today. She really very much wanted to, but something came up at the very last minute. So she's written a wonderful letter to Dave. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to read some highlights of it because I think it really encapsulates who Dave has been to all of us who have known him going back many, many years to the 80s and 90s. Certainly, I arrived here in 1990, and Dave was just a tremendous influence. So I think Inga speaks for many of us. Here we go. Dear Dave, it's a very special moment for me to share some thoughts about the role you have played in just about every aspect of my life. You have shaped my professional path and that of many colleagues at Cornell. You've inspired countless others at many institutions of higher education across the country who have shaped philanthropy over these last few decades. The greatest beneficiary, of course, was your beloved alma mater, Cornell, the great university that we both have been dedicated to. You were the role model we all wanted to follow. You articulated and personified the ethos and values that have guided so many of us. In retrospect, I realized what a risk taker you were when you first hired me to help you build Cornell's Major Gifts program. My only experience in development at that time was a short assignment as a corporate researcher. Today, my qualification for that position, research in French pre-revolutionary theater, would probably not pass anymore, but you took a chance. Working with you was a very special experience. You taught me about the importance of understanding what motivates a person to give, about connection, about being a helper and making somebody's dream come true through a gift. You taught me the importance of focusing on details, the power of the small but truly thoughtful gesture. Your meticulous preparations for Flood Newman's annual visits come to mind. And yes, helping to find him a pair of galoshes here in Ithaca, not a small feat I might add, was one of those special gestures, part of making him feel at home. I didn't fully understand the meaning of the word mentor then, but today I know that I have been the recipient of the most generous, giving, and selfless mentoring one could hope for. And you were forgiving of mistakes made. Every time Uva and I walk across the Cornell Botanic Gardens, we pass the stone by the overlook that carries the plaque commemorating the naming of the Flood Newman Arboretum. Part of my responsibilities of organizing that dedication was drafting an inscription of the plaque. After it was cast in bronze and mounted on the rock, I realized I had made a mistake. I had given Flood Newman the title of Trustee Emeritus. Your response was a simple, well, he deserved it. It brings a smile to my face every time I pass by that plaque. You are also a true innovator whose ideas influenced many other institutions. Just think of the donor wall at Uris Library. It was a project you fought hard for. You didn't lose patience as the process of approval stretched everybody else's patience except yours. Clearly, working with you made me find my professional calling. I could not and still cannot think of more interesting, fulfilling, and rewarding work. However, after Uwe completed his PhD at Cornell, qualifying for a green card turned out to be a true bureaucratic nightmare. Our forced return to Germany seemed to become unavoidable. But unbeknownst to me, you contacted one of the countless people who considered you a close friend and would be willing to do anything for you. That person's firm assigned a pro bono lawyer to our case and made it possible for us to receive our green cards, and a few years later, we were sworn in as citizens. Thank you again, Dave. You truly were a lifesaver for us. And you continued to have enormous impact on my life. When Cornell offered me the opportunity to lead the AA&D division, you were planning to retire and dedicate more time to consulting. I was concerned that losing such an important and highly respected colleague at the beginning of my term might make it more difficult to gain the support and confidence of those around me. And again, showing your selflessness, and your generosity, you agreed to stay for another year. It did make the difference for me. Again, thank you, Dave, for your support. I know that personal experience made it harder for you to approve of my move to the other Ivy League school. And as you predicted, I did find it to be a very different environment. But I also found the alumni and parents with whom I worked on gifts to be motivated by the exact same intentions to make a difference in the world that you taught me about. But it was later, when I followed in your footsteps as a consultant, that I fully realized the impact you have had on so many professionals across the country. As soon as people heard that I was at Cornell for a long time, they would ask if I knew you and volunteer stories of how much they had learned from you in a conference or when you consulted on their campuses. Their praise was filled with awe about you and what you represented to them. It is clear that you have left a great legacy in the field of philanthropy, and for that, many are deeply grateful to you. But you left an even greater legacy as a person of the highest standards and values, of the greatest integrity, of amazing generosity and kindness to others. And for some, like Uwe and me, you had an even greater impact still. You changed the direction of our lives into something we could not have foreseen, nor have achieved on our own. We are deeply, deeply grateful to you. With every good wish for the future and fondest regards, Inga Reichenbach.
Hello, Dave. Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Thang-Smith, and I had the joy of working with this guy from 1983 to 1997. I know, I was very young. And I was so touched to be asked to make remarks today, and I'm so grateful to Lauren and Peggy for the invitation. And I also feel some pressure because I know there are a lot of folks out there who would like to have a lot of things to say to you too. So I'm going to try to channel some of those thoughts as well. So for the folks who served in the Cornell Development Office during those years, and I know some of you are still here serving this great university, those were truly special years. And for those of us who got to work closely with you, well, we took a lot away from that. And I think when we left to go serve other institutions, we kind of chucked you under our arm and we took you with us. And a lot of institutions are the better for it. And then there's a whole other world of people who got to hear you teach at conferences. You know, Jeff mentioned, Inga mentioned. And so your ideas are being spread all over the world by those folks. I like to think of us, we're like the Dave Dunlop diaspora. In fact, I just came from Washington, D.C., where we hosted, for the 23rd year, Inspiring the Largest Gifts of a Lifetime, which is a conference that Dave and his friend Robert Sharp developed for CASE as a way of helping people understand that there are people who support their institution in an entirely different way. And because of that, universities need to know how to meet them with a different posture. And it was a sold-out conference, Dave, again. Ron was there. He's been there for 13 years, and every year we spend a lot of time talking about you. And I think we talk about you because so many of the ideas we're sharing are your ideas. But I'll be frank, the other reason we talk about you is because it just makes us happy. Isn't that right? That's right. In fact, anyone who knows me, personally or professionally, knows your name and knows what you've meant to me in my life and what you mean to me. And so on behalf of many others who feel this way, I want to thank you for everything you've taught us. And I want to thank you for helping us feel proud of doing this great work. And then I want to thank you for being my lifetime friend and wish you a very happy 60th reunion.
Hi, I'm Roger Sibley. I've only known Dave for 40 years. Back in 1979, I was hired as the executive director of Francisca Racker Centers, which was called Special Children's Center in those days, and Dave was the president. So that made him my primary boss. So we spent a lot of time together trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing, often at Kelly's Dockside, generally with a Bavarian nut cake. And it's not just Dave's tooth that's sweet, but it's definitely part of it. But one of the things, Dave, we have term limits, so Dave would go off the board and then come back on or serve on committees, but he was always available to me. And so anytime I had a question, anytime I had a problem, I could contact Dave. In fact, he gave me so much advice, it's a wonder that he has any left. 2 times we did major capital campaigns. One was the half-century campaign celebrating 50 years of our organization. The second one was the Making Room, which ended in 2012. Big surprise when you got Dave Dunlop as a friend. He was a co-chair on both of those campaigns. And not a big surprise, we were successful in both of those. So he was very helpful and taught us all a lot, which was really great. But you know, I love Dave, not just for the things he's done, but really for who he is. And he is truly a remarkable person. Just to give you one example of many, he and I went down to New York City to have a meeting with our state association to talk about the troubled relationship we had with the National. And when we finally got there, the president of the state board got up, kind of sprawled on the lectern, and started talking about the history of the relationship. Now, we all knew that, to say the least, and we were all pretty sick of it. And so we said, oh, great, we've just come down for another wasted meeting. But Dave, in his nice style, interrupted, and with great courtesy and kindness and lots of compliments, redirected the chair of the board to running a meeting that was talking about what it was supposed to be talking. All of us feel good when other people agree with us. Dave makes us feel good when he disagrees with us. So having known Dave and stayed in contact with him for 4 years, it is very clear to me that Dave Dunlop is the best of us. And I know you agree, Peggy. And it's an honor to have you both in my life. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andy Noel, Director of Athletics and Physical Education at Cornell, and the former head wrestling coach from 1974 to 1988. And Fred mentioned that I'm going to talk about Dave's wrestling career, which I'm going to touch on just so briefly, but then I'm going to talk about what Dave has meant to me personally and the Big Red wrestling program. So Dave Dunlop was quite a fierce competitor. He was an Eastern wrestling champion at Cornell, and he was part of a group of warriors, which include Dick Vincent and Steve Friedman, Carmen Molino, Dave Albel. It was one of the finest wrestling teams that Cornell has ever put on the mat. And Dave was a terrific teammate, judging from what his mates have told me over the years, and really made a difference. I won't get into the story about you and Steve working in the summer on the roads and that type of thing, but I'm following up Fred's comment about your excellence as a competitor and a wrestler, and also a varsity football player. So Lauren and Peggy, I want to also thank you for giving me the honor to share some of my comments about Dave and how much he supported me when I came to Cornell in 1974 as a wrestling coach. And Dave supported me specifically in that area, but as all of you know, over the next almost half century, Dave has supported the Big Red wrestling team more broadly in many, many ways. I think there are many in the room who know that Dave is know that Rob Cole, our head wrestling coach, who's quite well thought of these days. I would even call him famous, one of the top coaches in the United States in wrestling. but he is graced with the name the David R. Dunlop Head Coach of Wrestling. And you might say, why did Dave's friends and teammates bestow this type of honor onto Dave Dunlop? Well, I have my small perspective. Dave, you've been such a leader in philanthropy over the years, but not everyone knows the amazing mark that you made in another niche, which was your sport of wrestling. 45 years ago, when I came to Cornell as head coach, it's likely that Dave knew that the transition would be difficult because I just followed Jimmy Miller, who had been the head coach for 29 years, and I was only 24, so he started 5 years before I was born. So David offered in my very first year to help me in any way possible. He consistently made himself available, and I don't know how, Dave, you did this with your hectic schedule, but when he was in town and not traveling for Cornell, he literally spoke to and helped me recruit every young man who came to campus. And if they had their parents, that was a bonus, because there's never a parent that meets Dave Dunlop that doesn't love him. And that was kind of a hook that I had going on. Not a surprise. Dave's sincerity, his interest in the person, interest in the prospect, his knowledge of Cornell, and more importantly, his love of Cornell shone through all those discussions. And not a surprise, we had very, very positive outcomes. With Dave, and a year later, Carmen Molina, who became my assistant coach in my second year, the three of us became a recruiting team. I could brag about Carmen being a national AAU champion, as Steve was, and his ability on the mat, his technique, and I could talk about Dave's career and the impact Dave is making at Cornell, and together we started recruiting. And the early results were not great. My first 3 years, we were 3-9, 3-10, 3-9. But when our recruits came of age, Dave, we were 9-3, 11-3, and then over the next 8-10 years, we had 4 second places and 4 championships. And that was because of Dave helping us get off the bottom early on as a person who knew and loved Cornell. Now, there are 2 other things that Dave did that I think made a massive impact on our program. And I mentioned Carmen Molina. When I became head coach, Jimmy Miller became assistant coach, and Carmen was out. And Carmen was by far the very best of the 3 of us, and there's no question. So Dave spoke to me and gave me a little bit more perspective about the impact that Carmen did make with the team and could make and help me, and he was absolutely right. Carmen ended up being a dear friend and a phenomenal coach that our athletes all loved for 13 of my 14 years. And Dave encouraged me, introduced Carmen to me, and it was a wonderful, wonderful partnership. Carmen, by the way, just missed the Olympic berth in 1960 behind Dave Albel, another Cornellian. The second connection Dave made for me, which was priceless, is after a reunion, after the State of the U, I still remember this, Dave, we came out in the lobby and you said, I want you to meet a friend of mine, a classmate who's a terrific guy. He's very busy, but he's fantastic, very successful. And I think he could impact your program. And that gentleman is here today, but he's now better known as David Benioff's father. Now, I don't know if many of you know that David Benioff is the creator of Game of Thrones, which I watched poor Danny get stabbed a couple weeks ago. That was tough. But anyway, Dave Dunlop introducing Steve Friedman to me and to many others in our program, and then getting to know Steve and Barbara over the years, the impact that they made on our program is really the foundation of where we are today. We are able to be not just dominant in the Ivy League, having won 17 consecutive titles now under Rob Cole, who's the best coach in the country. But we now have a place on the national platform. So I submit to you that David Dunlop is the catalyst all these years later for success, sort of a domino in a building over time, the success of our program. I know that as a friend, he's meant the world to me. When I left the wrestling position after 14 years, it was to be a fundraiser at Cornell and to try to be like Dave Dunlop, which, of course, I failed at that, but we'll keep giving it a try, Dave. So in summary, Dave impacted our recruiting and we improved. Dave introduced me to Carmen Molino, and then the team and I improved. Dave introduced me to Steve and Barbara, and their care and generosity helped us recruit to improve even more. Then Steve helped us recruit Jack Spates, who then hired Rob Cole, who again is the finest coach in the country and the reason why the Big Red Wrestling program is so strong. So, Dave, I extend heartfelt gratitude and love to you and Peggy, Lauren, and Nick, and wishing you the best, not just today and this weekend for your 60th reunion, but forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, and Jeff, and Rebecca, and Roger. Thank you so much. These are just a few of the stories that we could tell. We could go all night and all day. What I'd like to do is present a couple of gifts to Dave. The first, actually, is something that Lauren has done. This is a book of 85 letters to Dave. Many, many more stories that haven't been told. And I told Lauren, I said, this needs to go in the Cornell archives. This is such an important part of our history. So you want to come forward and we can give this to you, this treasure. And one more item, you can't sit down. Another item, we have a resolution for you, and I won't read it to you because it's very long, but this is a resolution from the whole Division of Alumni Affairs and Development at Cornell. It's been signed by President Pollock, and this is just a small expression of our gratitude as your heirs at Cornell as we continue to do the work that you inspire us to do.
Thank you so much.
They are, absolutely. And I don't know, would Dave like to say a word? You want to say something? Would you like to have your last chance here? Or Peggy, okay, maybe Peggy wants to take here we go. The person who made it all possible, right? We should have been giving you more recognition, right?
Actually, it was Lauren that had the idea and carried it through. Dave, why don't you come up with me, honey? As some of you know, Dave has been having memory difficulties of late, and as I've helped him to go through his files from many years at Cornell and from his consulting, I had hoped to be able to pull out some of the letters that he had received after being faculty members at institutes or doing his consulting work, where people wrote to express their appreciation for the ideas he had conveyed to them and the impact it had had on their lives and their work. But it just wasn't possible to look for those letters as we cleared out the files. And when I said something to our daughter Lauren about it, she said, "Oh, Mom, I'd like to contact a lot of people and ask them if they would contribute a letter that I could put together for Dave so that as his memory continues to fail, he has something that he can refer to that enables him to see what an impact he's had on other people's lives and work. And so it was her idea to do this and have this reception to honor her dad. And I want to thank her and all of the speakers today and all of you. And especially all of you who took the time and trouble to come and honor this special man.
Thank you.
You want to say anything, honey?
Whoops. I'm deeply grateful to so many of you. In fact, almost everyone here has been helping me along my path to the state that I'm in now. I just want to express my appreciation for all those dear friends that you are, and for making such a difference in the way I enjoyed my life as a person here committed to the Cornell that we all love. Thank you so very much. You all mean a great deal to me. I'll never forget you. Thank you.
Dave, Chris Crooker, got a chance to work with you in the late 90s. Also a fraternity brother at our beloved Chi Psi, right over down the hill a little bit. I'm thrilled to be here this evening because of what you've meant to me in terms of my career, shaping me as a professional. I think about the conversations that we had and the things that you taught me every day. And I hope I'm trying as hard as I can. Maybe I've achieved a little bit in terms of helping spread that to my colleagues in the 22 or 3 years since we got a chance to work together. Thank you for everything you've done for me personally, but also for Cornell, which means so much to both of us, and of course Chi Psi. What a legacy, and I really have enjoyed your friendship and your mentorship for so many years. Thanks.
So Dave, I just want to say thank you for being such an incredible influence on me in my professional career. There have been many instances where I have said to myself, what would Dave do? And when I stop and think in those terms, it helps me make the right decision. You've been an incredible influence. I can't say enough about how positive that has been, and I just thank you for everything that you've done for me personally. And so thank you, Dave. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Ellen Walsh. I am Cornell class of 1976. And after getting a master's degree in college administration, I was lucky enough to get a wonderful job at Cornell University and met Dave Dunlop for the first time in 1979. He has been an absolute inspiration to generations of Cornellians and Cornellians who are proud to serve on the Alumni Affairs and Development staff with him and to have learned amazing ways of working with our alumni and supporting our university and being so proud of all of our efforts. And specifically, Dave's feel for our university has constantly and continually throughout my whole 40 years at Cornell been a great role model for me and so many others. And we all in the Alumni Affairs and Development Division cannot even imagine what we would be like without Dave's inspiration. So hats off to you, Dave.